Welcome everybody. It's lovely to have this moment to sort of connect with you. I wish that you were here. Never has that phrase been more true. I'm here just with Jake on the beach, and it is beautiful down here. It would be perfect for us to gather here as we have done over the last 9 years for some special times. We've baptised people in the sea, we've dedicated babies on the beach, and just generally it's been a great time for us to be together as a church community. But instead it's just me, and you're in your pyjamas no doubt at home, and I wouldn't change places with you. It's beautiful here today. My job this morning is just to give you a little thought and reflection as you begin Easter Sunday. And the thought that I want to bring to you is two things today, and they both come from the end of John. The Gospel of John, the end of it is so rich in the post-resurrection part. And there are two thoughts that came to me as I read through these that I just want to get you to pause and think about this morning in your homes. The first one is found in John chapter 20, when the disciples haven't seen Jesus yet. The women have told the story. I don't know how much they believe them, but they've said it's true, Jesus is risen. I should have started with saying that first thing. Jesus is risen. You can hear shouts of he is risen indeed. But that's what the women have told the disciples, but they haven't seen with their own eyes yet. And they gather in a locked room. You know, what has this story got to say to us today? Well, firstly, the disciples are locked down in fear. They can't leave their homes. And Jesus suddenly and somehow miraculously appears in the middle of their locked room. That's a beautiful story in itself. He doesn't seem to be invited, he just appears. And John says very clearly, in the centre of the room. And what are his first words to these unbelieving, fearful people? These people who are full of doubt, these people who are full of worry. Yes, they've heard that he's alive, but what are the first words that they hear? And the words are, peace be with you. Now, in this part of the world, in the Aramaic, this wasn't a strange greeting. In fact, it's completely normal. It's the word shalom. It's the word that means peace. And our equivalent, and it's sadly poor, but our equivalent is hello, or hi, or all right, or how are you doing? In other words, right in the middle of the room, Jesus comes and he says the words that he always says when he sees them, because it's the exchange that people say to each other. But there's something beautiful and profound about it. Our word hello, I don't know what it means. It's just a way of welcoming. In most other cultures, the way that people say hello to each other is to wish each other peace. Salam alaikum, shalom, peace be with you. And Jesus says this normal phrase in a very abnormal setting. He comes into the middle of a lockdown room and wishes peace. And he really means it when he says peace be with you, because peace is with them. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, comes into the middle of their room and says, I'm with you. Peace is here. That's the first thing I want you to think about today. Whatever room that you're sitting in right now, can you imagine the risen Christ coming into the centre of your room and telling you, peace be with you, because peace is with you. So whether your room is chaotic right now, maybe there's kids who are fractious and noisy and the place is a mess today, or maybe you're just on your own and you feel isolated and alone. In either of those settings, does it bring you comfort to hear Jesus say, peace be with you today? The second point that I want to raise with you as we stand here on this shoreline, and I can't believe I've never really spoken about this before on an Easter Sunday on this shoreline, is this profound moment that's found in the next chapter, John 21, where the disciples are sitting around wondering what to do, and Peter, as always, the more impetuous one, he says, I don't know about you lot, but I'm going to go fishing. In other words, I'm going to go back to the things I was doing before Jesus came and disrupted my life. We read at the beginning of the Gospels how Jesus walks along a shore just like this and meets some fishermen and says to them, come and follow me. One of them is Andrew, Peter's brother. Andrew goes and tells Simon, as he was called then, calls Simon Peter, and this incredible 3-year journey begins. But here in John chapter 21, Peter decides to go right back to the start of the journey again, as if Jesus hadn't called him, and decides to go fishing. And there's this brilliantly kind of playful moment, I think it's lovely, where here you've got these expert fishermen who have fished all their lives, and they go out all night on their fishing boats and they catch nothing. Jesus walks along the shore and shouts to them in what I can't help is feeling slightly cheekily way. He shouts to some fishermen who know what they're doing and says, why don't you throw your nets over on the other side? What he's asking them is, trust me. You think you're experts at this, but just trust me. Can you trust me? So they throw their nets over the other side of the boat, which would be just kind of unheard of. These guys have been fishing all their lives. They'll have had one side of the boat that they always throw the net out on. But they choose to trust, and they throw the net on a different side. When they pull it in, there's loads and loads and loads of fish. And then they come into shore. Peter again jumps out the boat, runs in. There's a lovely scene. And then in this lovely, almost throwaway line in John 21, verse 9, he says that they approach Jesus, and there is a fire that's already lit. And the lovely part, it says, and there were fish on the fire. In other words, Jesus had provided already. He says to these expert fishermen who have gone back to their old life, if you just trust me, I'll provide for you. Yes, you've caught more fish than you've ever caught in your life, but I've got fish already. And then for extra measure, in a kind of Paul Hollywood way, he says, oh, and I've made some bread. What a beautiful thing for Easter Sunday morning. Imagine the thought of Jesus saying, I'm going to give you fish and bread, the very things of life that you think you need to go and do and work hard at to get. But if you trust me, if you just trust me, and then we have this most incredible discourse in all of the Gospels, I think, where Peter, who's denied Jesus and failed him, sits down with his Lord and hears this question where Jesus says, Simon Peter, do you love me? He asked him 3 times, and effectively he's asking him, do you trust me? Do you still trust me? Are you going to go back to being a fisherman, or do you still trust me? Do you love me? And Peter says 3 times, yes, I do. And eventually Jesus says, in this strange phrase, feed my sheep. I think what he's meaning by that is that, no, you're not supposed to be a fisherman. That's what people told you you were, but I'm giving you a new role. I want you to be a shepherd. Earlier in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus says, I'm going to build my church on you, Peter. You're going to be the rock on which the church is built. And here on the other side of the resurrection, the message is nothing's changed. I'm calling you to be a shepherd to my people. Forget the fisherman and be the shepherd that I've called you to be. You know, in these times of lockdown, I think that so many of us, we have learnt some new things. We've been challenged about some new ways of living with the people who live in our house. All over the internet are people who are discovering some truths about what it is to live life without so much consumption. I think that we were made to be creators and not consumers. With the shops in lockdown, with us needing to stay at home, one thing I've been challenged about is how much I consume. Just in and out of work, the amount of times I just go into shops and I'll buy stuff. It might just be a bottle of drink, or it might be just something that I've seen in a shop window. But I'm not made to be a consumer. I'm made to be a creator. Because when we create, we reflect the God whose image we're made in. And lots of you, I think, are discovering in this lockdown time that you were called to be creators, not just consumers. And with that in mind, I wonder how much we're going to learn from this lockdown thing. I wonder when it's all over, whether we just go back to the things we did before, or whether there are new lessons to be learned, new ways to move forward, new ways that Jesus says, do you still trust me? Do you trust me for the best things in you? And for those of you who have planted things, those of you who have made things, those of you who have got old sketch pads out because you haven't drawn for years, those of you who have planted seed and seeing it beginning to grow, those of you who have begun to interact with friends and family that perhaps you've lost touch with over Zoom or whatever it might be, when this is all over, you're going to go back to the old ways, or what is it that Jesus might be teaching you in this season? So there's 2 thoughts for you. One is, can you hear the voice of Jesus saying, Shalom, peace be with you in the middle of your homes today? And secondly, what are the new things that you're going to trust as you learn in this season Jesus in? Finally, just as I wrap up here, you'll know that we've never had a time on the beach where we haven't had some moment or other taken one of these stones. So let me grab a stone here. And I always come up with this slightly spurious fact. Why shouldn't I repeat it here for eternity on YouTube? But that apparently somebody counted the pebbles on Brighton Beach, or they counted a section and then had to work it out as a project. And they came to the opinion that there was about 8 billion pebbles on Brighton Beach. In other words, there's a pebble for every human being that there is on the planet right now. I feel hugely connected to other people across the world in ways that I haven't before, perhaps on an Easter Sunday. As we're all in this together. This virus has crossed all kinds of borders, has affected every place on the planet, and yet we're still individuals that God sees and God holds and God knows. I'm going to pray for us. And as I think about this pebble, you might want to think, as we often do, about who's the one person that you need Jesus to come into the centre of their home, of their room today, and hear the words, peace be with you. Let's pray. God, thank you for each other. Thank you for our community. Thank you for this world. Thank you for the beauty that we see in people. Thank you for the goodness that we see happening around us in the midst of crisis. Thank you that there is so much love and creativity. And we also know that there are some horrific and terrible things happening today. But God, we hold before you the people we know and we love. And we ask you to bless them. We ask you to be present to them. I pray that into their ear today they would hear the whisper of a risen Christ who says, peace be with you. Prince of Peace, would you come into the hearts of our homes and into the hearts of us today, that we would know peace in this place. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks so much for sticking with us in this time. At 10:30, we're going to go live from Florence Road. We've got music, we have prayers, we've got a great craft activity that 2 gorgeous kids are going to explain to you. So join us on YouTube again at 10:30, and God bless you today, and peace be with you.